It's a Borg heist movie. Janeway's 11. Or Janeway's 4, I guess. Jesus. Sandra Bullock at least got 8. This is a review of the Star Trek Voyager episode Dark Frontier. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know what an episode of Star Trek Voyager would be like if it definitely wasn't directed by Steven Soderbergh, be warned, spoilers beyond this point. A feature-length Voyager episode featuring the Borg and the Borg Queen, originally airing during February sweeps, so it's a ratings grab. And it worked, by the way. It was the highest rated show of the 5th season, drew almost 2 million more viewers than the previous episode, and almost 3 million more than the following episode. But did the creators of Voyager write a story worthy of such a momentous event? We'll see. We open on a Borg ship, and we see Borg doing Borg stuff. The Borg detect Voyager nearby and attack it, but of course the attack does no discernible damage to Voyager because why would it? The Borg are like, you will be assimilated. And Janeway's like, oh yeah, choke on this. And Voyager beams a photon torpedo into the Borg ship and it blows up and kills all the Borg. Well, that didn't take long. Aboard Voyager, Chakotay's like, I thought we were only trying to disable the ship. And Janeway's like, oh well, I guess we're just too awesome. Blew up a Borg ship without even trying. That's us. Anyway, beam the pieces into a cargo bay and see what we can salvage. Later in the cargo bay, Janeway is inspecting the Borg shrapnel they have collected, and she says to Chakotay, man, I'm tired of always avoiding the Borg. We've tacked on like 2 years to our trip home because of these assholes. I think it's time we go on the offensive. Is this because it's February and advertisers are about to adjust their rates and our viewership numbers have been trending down since last year? It's not because of that. One of the Borg pieces they've picked up is the transwarp coil, which is what allows Borg ships to travel such long distances in such short periods of time. If Voyager had one of those, they could cut a big ol' hunk out of their journey back to Federation territory, but this one is too damaged to use. Fortunately, they also recover the black box from the ship they destroyed, and that black box contains detailed info about other Borg ships in the area, including this little beauty. A Borg sphere recently damaged in an ion storm, making its way home at relatively low speed while making repairs. Janeway's like, jackpot. In the briefing room, Janeway lays out her heist plan. Well, there's not really a plan yet, so it's more like her plan for a plan. They're going to catch up to this damaged Borg ship, beam a small team aboard, and steal its transwarp coil. Janeway tells Chakotay she wants to see an outline of how to pull off this heist tomorrow morning. Oh boy, I can't wait to see what the plan is. Janeway meets privately with Seven, and she's like, I was hoping you'd have more to say during my heist announcement since you're my on-staff Borg babe and all. Seven says, I mean, it's an ambitious plan, and there's always the chance that it won't get everybody killed. Janeway suggests that the logs they recovered from the Raven, the ship Seven's parents were on during their ill-fated study of the Borg, might give them the edge they need. And she says, Seven, I want you to study those logs and relive the most traumatic memories of your life. I think it would really benefit the mission. But my parents and I were assimilated by the Borg. The Borg know everything that's in those logs, so how is that going to help? Look, those logs have been sitting untouched in our computer database for 2 years. It's time you stopped avoiding them. So wait, do you want me to read the logs to help the mission, or so I can have some emotional catharsis? I don't care. Just do what I tell you. Jesus. Hey, one thing real quick. They're flying through a region of space where they could run into a Borg ship at any time. They've had the records from Seven's parents' Borg research project for 2 years, and nobody has looked at them? Okay. Later, Neelix delivers a crate full of computer pads to Seven in her cargo bay. He notices how ambivalent she is about her parents, and he tells her, you know, I lost my family too. But all I have to remember them by is a faded picture of my sister. I'd love to have a whole box of evidence testifying undeniably to what reckless fools they were. Anyway, enjoy! As Seven reads the logs from the Raven, we flash back to when Seven was a child, little Annika Hansen, and her father tells her that they're leaving on a suicide mission for science tomorrow. Then we cut to a few months later, and the Hansons have gone rogue and taken the Raven into Romulan space in pursuit of a Borg cube, which they locate and decide to follow. I'm sure that'll turn out all right. Back in the present, Janeway and her heist team, consisting of herself, Seven, Tuvok, and Harry, run through a simulation on the holodeck. They manage to get away with the transwarp coil, but they take too long, and the Borg beam aboard Voyager. Oh no, not a handful of Borg drones. They're so hard to kill. Remember all the other times when Borg drones have been just so very, very hard to kill? The mission is a failure. They're 12 seconds over their target time for the job. Seven suggests there may be something in her parents' logs that could help. They were able to remain undetected aboard Borg vessels for hours at a time. Janeway tells Seven to keep researching the Raven records. She also asks Seven if she's feeling up to this mission, and Seven's like, I'm good, boss lady, don't worry. Later, Seven's working in her cargo bay when Naomi Wildman walks in, like, my mom's at work and Neelix is, I don't know, taking a flea dip, so can I hang out with you? I had a nightmare. Seven says, nightmares are all in your head, child. They're just a product of what a coward you are deep down inside. Just ignore it. Naomi's like, my mom says you're planning to steal something from the Borg, but I thought stealing was wrong. It's not wrong when you're stealing from something evil. So the Borg are like Walmart? The Borg are exactly like Walmart. But then Naomi shifts from cute but annoying kid to creepy but still annoying kid, and she starts asking Seven questions about what it's like to be assimilated, and if it hurts to become a Borg drone, and if the Borg have children. And then she says resistance is futile, and a little Borg sprocket pops out of her cheek. Suddenly, Seven is surrounded by Borg, and she's hearing the voice of the Borg Queen telling her, we can read your thoughts. We know about Voyager's plan to steal the transwarp coil from that sphere. We'll spare your friends if you rejoin the collective. Okay, so think about it and call me back. Can I just say, that twist with Naomi telling Seven about her nightmare, to Seven realizing that this is actually her own nightmare, then realizing that it's not an ordinary nightmare, it's a Borg nightmare where the Queen is communicating with her. That's nicely done. We get another flashback, this time of Magnus, Seven's dad, on the Borg cube observing the drones. He's using a gadget that shields his biosigns from the Borg, which allows him to remain on the cube without the Borg noticing him, because I guess they can't just look and see him crouching there. Anyway, back in the present, Seven is explaining these bio-dampener gizmos to Tuvok and the Doctor, and Tuvok is like, perfect! Doctor, replicate enough of these for the whole heist team so we can camouflage ourselves. But wouldn't the Borg know about this technology now? Seven's parents were assimilated like 20 years ago. The Borg know everything they knew, including how they were able to sneak around their ships, right? That was mentioned, or at least strongly implied, in this episode, wasn't it? Shouldn't they think of some other way to... Never mind, they're doing it. Before the heist, Janeway has another talk with Seven. Janeway expresses concern, saying that Seven has seemed distracted and irritable since they began planning this mission, and she started reading her parents' logs. Janeway tries to take Seven off of the heist team, but Seven insists that she go along, that her expertise with the Borg will be needed. Of note, Seven does not tell Janeway that she's recently been contacted by the Borg Queen, who informed her that the Borg know they're coming. Seven tells Janeway that the crew of Voyager is important to her, and she's willing to risk herself for the sake of everyone else's survival. Janeway's like, that's really nice to hear, because with how weird you've been acting and how hard you just pushed to go along on the heist, I thought for a second that you were having second thoughts about being on this ship and were planning on betraying us to the Borg. What just a random thought. Outrageous, right? Right. They do the heist. It goes exactly like in the holodeck simulation. Like, exactly. They get the transwarp coil with no problem at all, but then Seven hears the voice of the Queen again, and she turns to Janeway like, okay, I'm staying here. I want to be a Borg again. Get lost. Janeway has no choice but to leave Seven there, because now the Borg can see through their bio-dampener gadgets, and the drones are closing in. Janeway, Tuvok, and Harry beam back to Voyager, and the sphere zips away with Seven on board. The sphere flies back to Borg headquarters, and Seven meets with the Borg Queen, who tells her, hey, guess what? You didn't escape from us 2 years ago. We let Voyager have you, and now we want you back. because we need your experience as an individual amongst humanity so we can better understand the nature of humanity's resistance, so the next time we try to assimilate them, we don't look like ineffectual losers again. But the Borg have assimilated a bunch of humans at this point. Doesn't the collective have all of their individual experiences already? What could my 2 years on Voyager possibly tell you about humanity that you don't know? I don't know, but guess what? Nap time! Take a nap, forget all about all the holes in this premise, just go to sleep, and when you wake up, we'll talk about something else. While Seven takes a nap at Borg headquarters on Voyager, Janeway is trying to solve the mystery of why Seven chose to leave and return to the Borg now. Chakotay says, well, she did tell us pretty much right away that she would betray us one day. And then, not long after she got here, she detected what she thought was a Borg homing signal, and she stole a shuttlecraft and tried to rejoin the collective. Aren't we just big dopes at this point for even being surprised? Specifically you, aren't you just a big dope? Janeway's in her ready room, probably pondering what a big dope she is, when Naomi Wildman pops in for a visit. She says, I've put together a plan for a rescue operation to get back 7 of 9. It's all right here. Janeway's like, yes, I see you've just written on the screen of this tablet in crayon. You know what? You're right. I've just finished an analysis of some unexplained recent energy fluctuations, and it looks like the Borg were secretly talking to 7 of 9 right before the heist. So we're going to find that sphere again and go get her, because there are 3 things to remember about being a starship captain. Keep your shirt tucked in, go down with the ship, and never abandon a member of your crew, and Tuvix doesn't count. Meanwhile, at Borg headquarters, Seven wakes up from her nap, and the Borg Queen says, surprise! While you were sleeping, we assimilated all of your memories from Voyager, but we're still going to keep you around as yourself. 4 reasons. Also, we're just going to take a little trip to do a quick assimilation. Sound like fun? While the Queen and Seven head out for their afternoon assimilation appointment, we get another flashback about little Seven and her irresponsible parents, because this is the second half of the episode now, and we need to reestablish the Hansons so that what happens later makes sense when this feature-length episode is split in half for syndication. Back on Voyager, Janeway tells Chakotay to keep digging into the Hansons' records because they're going to rescue 7 of 9. Chakotay says, okay, but just remember, the Hansons made a fatal mistake in their pursuit of the Borg. They were overconfident. And Janeway says, we won't make the same mistake. I'm absolutely certain of it. So Janeway, Tuvok, Paris, and the Doctor jump on the Delta Flyer, which has been fitted with the transwarp coil they stole, and they start tracking the sphere. Meanwhile, Seven and the Queen arrive at the planet they're going to assimilate, and Seven does not have a good time, what with all the screams of terrified people being turned into drones echoing throughout the ship. She finds a small group of people who haven't been assimilated yet and helps them escape, beaming them back aboard one of their own ships and hoping they won't be noticed. But the Borg Queen does notice. She grabs the ship in a tractor beam and says to Seven, pick a hand, assimilate or destroy. Seven says, or you could let them go? The Queen's like, not an option. It's time you learned your lesson and abandoned your human frailties. Or you could let them go? Yeah, okay. And the Queen lets them go. All right, then. A little later, the Queen comes up to Seven like, so, I have a fun project for you. I've decided to assimilate humanity by releasing Borg nanoprobes in Earth's atmosphere, where they'll multiply and spread throughout the population like a virus and Borgify everybody gradually over a period of several years. And what do you need me for? I want you to program the nanoprobes. You're the Borg Queen. Can't you just do that? I want you to do it, to cement your loyalty or something. Seems pretty thin. Also, if you were planning on doing this, why'd you need me or my memories or any of the other stuff you've been talking about at all? Why not just figure out a way to introduce the nanoprobes to Earth without anyone noticing and do that? You know what your problem is? You're still torn between being human and being a Borg. Well, maybe this will help you choose a side. And a drone steps forward, and it's Magnus, Seven's father, all assimilated up. Papa? Can you hear me? Papa, can you see me? Papa, can you find me in the Cue! The Delta Flyer locates Borg headquarters and detects where Seven is, and Janeway and Tuvok beam over. They activate their biodampeners and figure out a way through the force fields that are shielding the Queen's chamber. And wait, didn't we already establish that the biodampeners don't work, that the Borg can see through them, and the only reason they were able to complete the heist of the transwarp coil is because the Queen allowed them to in order to entice Seven to rejoin the collective? Also, Janeway sends Seven a message right before they beam over to Borg headquarters, and the Queen overhears it, so the Queen knows that Janeway is on her way right now. Why aren't Janeway and Tuvok being ripped to pieces by drones or assimilated or something from the moment they beam over? How does it? Never mind, Janeway just walked into the Queen's chamber with a gun. She's like, "Unbridle my Borg, babe, or I'll blast your brains all over this boat." And the Queen's like, "No." And Seven says, "Shoot that big glowing thing on the ceiling." And Janeway shoots the big glowing thing, and her and Seven beam onto the Delta Flyer. They escape using the transwarp coil, but the Queen's ship follows them. They reach the rendezvous point with Voyager, and as soon as the Delta Flyer emerges from the transwarp conduit, Chakotay shoots the conduit with torpedoes, collapsing it and destroying the Queen's ship. Later, Seven is back in her cargo bay, and Janeway enters and says, "Okay, nap time." What is with everyone telling me to take a nap in this one? I don't know, but we saved you from being enslaved to the Borg. You're back here with us where your freedom and right to self-determination are respected. Now get in your alcove and go to sleep. That's an order. And Seven, sweet dreams. The end. Do Borg dream of cybernetic sheep? So, okay, I know I complain a lot about how the Borg were overused and wrung out, and if you've ever wanted a singular example of what I'm talking about when I make those complaints, here it is. It's all in this episode, and as a bonus, it's not just the treatment of the Borg. The episode fails on other fronts as well, but let us begin with the Borg. The first thing we see in the episode is the crew of Voyager easily defeating a Borg vessel. Granted, it's just a small Borg vessel, but the fact remains they destroy it easily, so easily that they didn't even mean to destroy it. They were only trying to disable it and blew it up anyway because I guess they just don't know their own strength. And the other, larger, supposedly more dangerous Borg vessels they encounter later on in the episode don't put up much more of a fight than this one does, so right away we establish that the villains of the episode are not a threat or a challenge to the heroes. We also established that the Borg are dipshits, or the Borg Queen is a dipshit, depending on how you look at it. Over and over again in this episode, Janeway and her crew are able to follow Borg ships, get close to Borg ships, beam people aboard Borg ships, and fuck around aboard Borg ships, even to the point of setting bombs and blowing up the shield generators on Borg ships, and the Borg drones on those ships never pay any attention until the moment that the good guys do something that puts the entire Borg ship in immediate jeopardy. Why aren't they attacking the Starfleet people as soon as they see them? Why are the Borg hanging back and letting these people get 90% of their shit done before trying to stop them when it should be clear from past experience that these people are a threat? And some of you might say, but it's been established since their first appearance that the Borg ignore people who visit their ship until they become a threat, which only makes them bigger dipshits at this point. See? Back in season 2 of TNG, or even season 3, when the Borg had only appeared a couple of times and they were still pretty much unbeatable, it made sense to have the away teams be able to beam aboard the Borg ship and the Borg just act like they're not even there. In that situation, it's a show of strength. The Borg are so far above these Starfleet dopes, so unthreatened by them, that they don't even care if they beam aboard their ship and start snooping around. Who cares? What are they gonna do? But supposedly, the secret to what makes the Borg such formidable adversaries is their ability to adapt. So after years of having their shit fucked up every time they cross paths with Starfleet, why are the Borg still ignoring Starfleet people when they beam onto the ship? Why not just kill them or assimilate them right away? They've proven to be a threat. The real answer is that the writers can't be bothered to come up with new stuff, and they write the Borg in Season 5 of Voyager as though they haven't learned anything since Season 2 of TNG, so they can just keep reusing the same tropes. They'll ignore us until we're a threat. We can get a few shots off with our phasers before they adapt their shields. The same stuff that happens in every Borg story, which the lethally adaptable Borg hive mind never seems to catch on to. The justification for the Borg's presence in this episode and for the 7 defects back to the collective plot are both pretty weak. The concept of a heist with Janeway leading a team onto a Borg ship to steal something they need has a lot of potential, but there's no immediate necessity established for it. Janeway just kind of decides to do it because she's tired of running and hiding from the Borg. Okay, it would work better with more urgency. If the crew was backed into a corner somehow, if the heist was a do-or-die situation, they had to steal this transwarp coil, or whatever MacGuffin it might be, or else something really, really terrible would happen. And the Queen wants Seven back home because the Borg need her insight in order to successfully assimilate humanity? Really? Come on. I get that they wanted to do a big splashy Borg episode for February sweeps, and that's the real reason this episode exists, but this is truly the best they could come up with? The Queen wants Seven back because she is unique? She can help the Borg understand humanity's resistance? But they aren't going to just reassimilate her, because then they would lose her one-of-a-kind perspective. That doesn't hold water for a second, especially when it's revealed late in the episode that the Queen has a new plan to assimilate Earth anyway. A plan that doesn't seem to be informed by or dependent upon Seven's unique perspective at all. I know some of you canon nerds might object to the discontinuities between this episode and previously established facts about the Borg. Once again, we see the Hansons studying the Borg up close and personal, calling them the Borg even before they leave on their trip. They even have a scale model of a cube in their house, which we see Annika playing with, all of which seems to contradict the Enterprise's run-in with the Borg in Q-Who in TNG's second season being humanity's first encounter with the Borg. Also, the Queen describes Seven of Nine as the only Borg to ever regain her individuality, which contradicts a bunch of stuff from TNG, Hugh, the group of liberated Borg who followed Lore, Captain Picard, as well as previous episodes of this series, like the colony of liberated Borg Chakotay encounters in Unity back in Season 3 of Voyager. I just want to make it clear, as you probably expected me to say, that I don't give a shit about any of that. There are problems with how this episode is written, how this story is put together in and of itself that are way, way, way more important than whether it matches up with everything else we've ever learned about the Borg previously. If this episode tells me the Hansons studied the Borg years before the Enterprise D crew ever met them, fine. If this episode tells me Seven is the only Borg to ever regain her individuality, fine. The most important thing to me is always the episode I'm watching right now. If it connects to and draws resonance from other works in the same series or fictional world, that's great. But the most important thing is whether or not this story works on its own terms, and the story of Dark Frontier doesn't. The Borg are weak and inept. There's nothing special or unique about them. We still get dialogue referring to the hive mind and their collective will and their fearsome capacity to adapt, but we never see that posing a serious threat to the heroes. The Borg act like any other generic bad guy aliens would act. They're just Kazon in different costumes at this point. They've been completely neutered as villains. Beyond the depiction of the Borg, the episode's plot is a mess. Janeway announces that they're going to pull off a heist on a Borg ship. Then the heist itself plays out like an afterthought. She tells Chakotay to formulate a plan. We never see what that plan is. Because we never see what the plan is, we can't anticipate when and how the plan will go wrong when they try to carry it out. We can't tell if it's gone wrong when it starts to go wrong, and none of that matters anyway because the heist winds up not mattering. There's no build-up, there's no suspense, there's no opportunity to show us how clever or daring our heroes are by forcing them to improvise when the plan blows up in their faces. Things just happen. and keep happening until it's time for something else to happen. Then, that whole structure is reused in the second half of the episode. We get a half-assed heist that doesn't matter in the first half. Then in the second half, we get another one exactly like it, only this time they're not stealing something, they're rescuing 7 of 9. But it's the same deal. We don't get to see the plan ahead of time, and it wouldn't matter anyway. Janeway and Tuvok do have to improvise something to get through a force field, but it's just technobabble stuff, and it plays more like an excuse to burn off some extra running time than the characters actually solving a dilemma in a meaningful way. Janeway finds 7, they escape together, everyone gets back to Voyager safely, and then they blow up another Borg ship without even meaning to do it. Chakotay just intends to collapse the transwarp conduit to prevent the Borg from following them, but collapsing the conduit also blows up the Borg ship. Bonus. Wow, these Borg sure are easy to kill. You can literally destroy their ships without even trying. The plot feels like a first draft, hastily assembled justification to do a Borg episode. The action is pointless even by Voyager standards. 7 leaves the ship because the Borg Queen asks her to, then comes right back, and all is immediately forgiven. The transwarp coil Janeway was so eager to get is used to rescue 7 and then disposed of in a captain's log voiceover. Oh, we used the transwarp coil to get 15 years closer to home and then it burned out. Good to know. Thanks for telling us. The heroes gain nothing and are forced to sacrifice nothing, and worst of all, it's not even entertaining to watch. Like I said in the plot summary, I do like how the scene where the Queen contacts 7 is structured, starting out with Naomi telling 7 about a nightmare she had, then that reversal that reveals we're actually in 7's nightmare, only it's not really a nightmare, it's the Queen communicating with her. That's a well-done scene. The performances, as usual, are fine. Voyager's excellent cast, doing what they usually do, trying their best to make something out of what they've been handed. The cast of Star Trek Voyager are like the acting versions of contestants on Chopped. They open their baskets to find the dramatic equivalents of cheeseburger in a can, limp celery stalks, stale fruitcake, and bull testicles, and there's Rick Berman standing off to the side like, "You have 1 hour to make a delicious entree, time starts now." After watching Dark Frontier, it didn't surprise me at all to learn that while its ratings were up, the ratings for the following episode dropped to even lower than they were before. They drew in a couple million extra people for the Big Borg episode, and those couple million extra people saw this and said, you know what, we're good. And next week they went back to watching the Drew Carey show, and I don't blame them. Those are my thoughts on Dark Frontier. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next time as I conclude this batch of reviews of Borg episodes. Next up, an episode from Voyager's 6th season titled Collective. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.